with the fairing assembly on the T4. This is the Grizzla pads, fairing, and bumper set. Back bumper, front bumper, two fairings. It also has this sort of guards that go along the top here. Removed the top and took the plastic off around these guys. Let's get started. A little note about this rear bumper. It's got the space inside to put these lights, these rear lights. So you kind of remove this screw and then the bracket on this thing, and then I basically unscrewed the bracket off. So this guy came off. I think that's how you get it in here, but it's got, you know, this sort of little complicated assembly. You gotta figure it out. I'm not aware of any instructions on how to install this bumper set, so I'm winging it. I sent Grizzla a note asking for if there are any instructions, but it's the weekend and I kind of want to get it done. There's these insets that go in like this. And they kind of basically close off the opening after this thing goes in. This sort of secures it in place. No explanation of that. You just have to kind of look at it like a puzzle piece and figure out, okay, well, these have to go on here because it looks like what it is. All right, well, I'm gonna give this a try and I'll continue once I figure it out. All right, another note. So these guys go up through here and they're sort of tucked behind this wire. So notice also no waterproofing on this connection, so you may wanna, here's the other side where I pulled it out. You may wanna wrap this to waterproof it. And I think you have to flip. I think you have to unplug this and unplug this and flip the this one on that side and this one on that side in order to get it in this bumper correctly, because it routes the wire. The light goes in here and it routes the wire on that side, which if you look at it, it actually needs to be switched in order to go in correctly. So another interesting note. Okay, I think the best way to do this is just remove them. And then, see, I've got this one in, and I've got the little, I don't know what you call it, but the little plug piece that goes in. So this one, I'll show you how this one goes. The rounded side goes in first, and then when you put this in, you want it to be, you know, cable facing down. And of course the cable side goes where it obviously would. So, and you want the light facing to the back, of course. So then you route the cable, fit it in, and then just kind of push this down, let it go in, push it down all the way. And this thing you want to like go all the way to the end, like this guy is. So just kind of work it down till it's there. And then you put this in and it goes in like this so that the left or the right letter is facing towards the outside. In this case, it's the left, so I put it in. And then when I put it in, it's gonna kind of push this wire all the way to the end here, but you wanna be careful. So I give it a little extra slack. I'm gonna pause here because I'm holding the camera. Okay, so it's in all the way now. And I've got this in, I've got this in, flush. These wires are, I can kind of like sort of tug on it. It sort of has a little bit of play in there still. So I think we're good. Nothing seems trapped or the wire doesn't seem jammed or anything. And so now you've got them facing backward here, which is perfect. So you kind of have to remove them and then assemble this piece and then put it back on. So now you would put this piece on here. Okay, so it just sort of sits right here. Lines up with these three screws nicely. Then you've got the wire here that just plugs back in to this guy. And you got this wire here for this guy. And I would probably want to tuck it back under here where it was once it's assembled. I might put a little bit of shrink wrap on it and then assemble it and try to shrink it on there just to give it a little extra protection. And then I've also noticed that the seal around here looks better than what I've seen on the Master, but you know, the assembly isn't always great, so you may want to, I'm probably going to take this thing off and take a look at it, make sure the seal's good, and maybe add a little bit of this stuff just to make sure that it's nice and tight. And then I'll probably dab these guys before I put the fairing on. There we go. Back bumper. Got the 3 screws, and this one's a little bigger than these two. And got these still sticking out, ready to be plugged in. Looking pretty good so far. Kind of psyched. Okay. Got these, I think, pretty good. It's not perfect, but it should help with water. Okay, here's a pro tip. Do the top, screw in the top before the bottom, and have these be a little loose when you're putting this in. And this guy seems to go under, so you know, keep this off, put this on first, and then this goes on top. In one of the pictures it looked like this went over this, but I don't see how you could fit this in here. You know, there doesn't seem to be any tolerance for this guy to go in, so I think this goes on top. Plus, like, I just can't imagine it'd be easy to screw this in and fit it all with this thing in the way. Anyway, top first, keep this a little loose. Once these are in, also keep them not totally tight, and then do these, because you're gonna need to make sure that you're stacking the fairing, this bumper, and then the battery case, and then the bracket behind it. So those 4 things are like being, you know, smashed together and have to be lined up. So you want some wiggle room as you do that. Okay. I've got some silicone on these screws all around the inside, sides, outside. I'm gonna put the other fairing on. One thing to be careful of is, notice that the top only has 3 screws up here versus 4 down here. So the one right of this screw hole, basically, yeah, the one on the right there, that needs to have the old screw left in. So don't forget to put that in and tighten it before you put this fairing on, like so. All right, got the right and left fairing on. One issue I had was the screw holes down here. I mean, this is an aluminum casting that has, you know, that's threaded for these stainless steel bolts or screws, and they were not cooperating. It wasn't lining up, and it kept like misaligning on the threads. Every time I push it through here, actually several of them had that, so I ended up, you know, having to fix some of the threads, but then in the end I could tell these were jamming, but I just pushed them through in the last 5 or so turns because it just was so stubborn. But anyway, it's in there. But just be mindful that those threads on the aluminum casting behind there on the frame are a little wonky, and you have to be very careful when you're screwing it in. Okay, the section in between the top and the side fairing, this piece, definitely goes on the outside of the top, not underneath. As I was thinking before, just there's no way that you can get this piece down far enough, having it over it. So But I think it is a little bit tricky putting the fairing on over that. So I ended up tucking it in after the fact, but I had to kind of use a sort of a flathead screwdriver to wedge it, to like lever it in and then push it down far enough. But it was fine. So perhaps you can put the fairing on while this top is still on, but I found it pretty easy to put on without, and not too hard to then squish these sides in after the fact. But it's looking pretty sweet. This is a 6 set of pads, bumpers, fairings. Gonna have the Grizzla pads on top. Can't wait to use it. All right. Project done. Got Grizzla set up. Got the old CNC spikes.